Hi everybody, Brad McCullough here from Advanced Technology Services. Today I want to talk a little bit about asset criticality and why it's important. Up to this point we've talked about OEE, the OEE financial model, and how we use that to understand the impact it will have on the manufacturing floor when we improve asset performance. But one thing that's really important is not all assets are the same. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in this video. Come along with me. So why is asset criticality important? What we're talking about here are assets on the floor that bring a different amount of value or add value to your product. Assets at the beginning of the assembly line, assets at the beginning of a production line that influence all the assets downstream are more important potentially than the 4 or 5 at the end, depending on the complexity of your manufacturing product. We're going to take a look at that a little closer and really try to understand how we value those assets, which will help us develop preventive maintenance programs and planning scheduling, and really where we focus our attention as we implement an asset performance program in your plant. Now, those of you that follow me on LinkedIn have probably seen this document. And this is an asset performance scorecard, if you will. And you can, in the yellow, you can highlight where your assets fall, if they're new, if they're in great condition, if they're good condition, if they need repair, or if they need completely rebuilt. So each of these is weighted 5, 4, 1, and 0. So asset criticality 1, 2, and 3 are production assets, and then non-production assets 4, which have a 0. And you can change this weighting in this model to really understand what's going on, but we give it a grading scale, and you can see if you're above 80%, you're in pretty good shape. You get below that, you start to have problems. The neat thing about this scoring methodology is you put it together, it helps drive improvement and allows you to score yourself. But you can also correlate it to overall equipment effectiveness out on your floor. So you've seen this model before. We can talk more about that if you'd like. Send me a note on LinkedIn and we can spend more time with this. I could even send you a copy of it if you'd like. But we're going to spend a little bit of time and really get into asset criticality and why it's important. So let's start with this. Think about the production schedule that you operate. In this particular model is a $100 million plant with estimated 10% downtime. So when we put this calendar together and we say how many hours are we running, we kind of factor in the downtime. We say the plant's running 1,800 hours a year. So that means that every functional hour is worth about $55,000 an hour. So that's real important. Next, what we have to do is we think about criticality. We have to go and go through an exercise where we really label assets critical 1, critical 2, critical 3. Critical 1 meaning shuts the plant down. These are critical assets, very important, high value components out there on the manufacturing floor. Critical 2, very important production asset, brings a lot of value. Critical 3, it's a production asset, brings value, but not as much as 1 and 2. You can see in this particular model, we've got 200 assets, 25 are critical 1, 75 are critical 2, and 100 are critical 3. We're going to look at this model and see just exactly how we quantify the value that each of those assets bring. So in this model, we've taken that weight. As you can see, we've taken the weighting, and we've created that same weighting that we had on the original scale. But here we've calculated how many production hours, total production hours, each asset runs in a year. But then, based on 10% downtime, and I can also factor in the OE model in this particular case, how many effective hours did they have that created that $100 million? And then if we ran 100% availability, it'd be worth $11 million worth of additional product. So the neat thing is we can back in and we can understand the amount of value, and we can quantify the value per hour based on criticality. So you can see here, based on this weighting system, $1,234 for critical 1 per hour, and this is per production hour for each individual asset, right? $329 for critical 2, and $61 for critical 3, which averages $308 an hour for all the production assets you have running on your manufacturing floor. So this is real important when we start to set our priorities with our PM programs and how we schedule time in production and how we're going to address the issues. And the neat thing about it is if you think about that value and you think about critical ones downstream, what's that telling you is, if I focus on those 25 assets and I really improve their availability, I'm going to have a dramatic impact on the plant. So I don't have to swallow the whole elephant, so to speak. I can take it one piece at a time, focus my priorities where they belong, and really get some value out of my maintenance effort and my asset performance improvement program. So the key thing is that you go through a very rigid and thoughtful exercise on what's critical 1, what's critical 2, and what's critical 3. One more piece of information that's kind of interesting, and I want you to think about, we'll talk more about this in additional videos. We talked about the asset criticality, but what I'll also tell you is not all failures are the same. So there's critical 1 failures, 2, and 3. So critical 1 failures is shut the plant down, high dollar, high cost against critical assets. So you can kind of see here's a bit of a matrix that we've looked at and experimented with to say critical 2 failures and critical 3 failures aren't quite the same. So I just want you thinking about the asset criticality is important, and there are certain types of failures that are more dangerous than others. So, interesting thing, I got to spend some time with a gentleman named Anthony Mack Smith, a reliability expert back in the 90s, and one of the things I learned was what we called failure by name. And he was really adamant about quantifying failures is what we're doing here and what they cost you, and looking at preventive maintenance programs just to make sure that they're focused on the right things and that there's a return, so that the cure isn't worse than the disease, so to speak. So he was very much pushing for this failure by name, which is something we'll talk about more when we think about planning and scheduling. When we get into asset performance and how we drive we drive reliability, but this will be something we'll talk about more. Just thought I'd share that with you. I hope this video helps you think about your assets on the floor a little bit different, and that you'll set up a criticality listing, go through an exercise, and really think about what's important to you and what isn't. This will drive your asset performance improvement program in the right direction to make sure you're getting a good return as soon as possible. If you have any questions, reach out to me. Appreciate it. And feel free, email me at bmccully@advancedtech.com, or here's my phone number. Always willing to help, even if we just have a phone conversation. Be interesting to hear from you. Thanks. Have a good day and good luck.